What's up, everybody? Welcome to The Value Script, the podcast where we bring value every episode for the everyday person. Today, we have a very special guest. I'm excited to introduce Miss Marissa Hughes. She is the founding partner and co-owner of Mavi Med Spa. She is a nurse practitioner specializing in medical aesthetics and wound care. She is currently a director of the Heart of Dixie Vein and Vascular Center. She has been awarded the honor of 30 in their 30s by the St. George Chamber of Commerce. She was chosen to be a national trainer by two national aesthetic companies, Rev & S and Endo Aesthetics. She's a single mother of two, my nephews. Emotional beast coming back. Single mother of two amazing young men. And she happens to be my sister-in-law, Meredith's sister. She's an amazing woman. Welcome to the show, Marissa.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. We've wanted to have you on the show since we started. And since you got to come down for Thanksgiving, we're grateful for this opportunity to have you here and just share your story with the audience because I feel it's quite inspiring.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, by the way.
Yes, you too. Thanks for letting me crash at your house.
All right, Marissa. We kind of grew up in the same area. I grew up in a small town west of a small town. Yeah. We all went to high school in Buckeye. That was the big town we all drove to. And I grew up in Palo Verde and you grew up in Arlington, which is 10 miles further west and deeper into the country.
Even smaller.
Even smaller, right?
Small town.
Yeah, even smaller, small town. The reason I'm framing that is it seems that most people, when they think of high-level performers, people that are opening, a high-end med spa, running a cardiovascular center, those types of things. I've wondered in my own mind how important it is to have the big titles from like Harvard, Yale, whatever, right? And I went to Arizona State. You went to
Dixie State,
yeah. Right? How important do you think it is to obtain higher education, and also, does it matter where you go in your experience?
I don't think so. No, I mean, yeah, we went to Buckeye High School. We joke of that in St. George. My business partner, he's always like, you guys ever heard of Buckeye? It's like east of nothing and south of nowhere. Small town. I think for me, I always knew that I wanted to get out of Buckeye and see what the rest of the world had to offer. So I went to St. George, Utah. I actually went to Cedar City. I went to Cedar City, which is small even town. Smaller. Uh-huh. But no, I think it all depends on ultimately what you want and your drive. And I don't think it matters where you go. Yeah, it's what you make it.
Have you ever felt limited by the places that you chose to receive your education in any way? Mm-mm. I haven't either. That's people talk about those things and I just think, I'm a farm kid. I grew up on a farm, what does he say? West of nowhere and south of nowhere. Yeah. Right. And, I went to this Podunk. I loved my elementary school. It was a great elementary school, but in many people's eyes, it was a small farm fed elementary school. Yeah. And, I then, we went to high school. And then I was able to receive as much education as I ever wanted. Yeah. And I feel like I wasn't limited by that at all. Yeah. But when you were growing up, did you have a version of yourself or a vision of who you wanted to become?
I did. It's interesting. I think back to that. I always knew that I wanted to be a nurse. Our little sister, she has a heart condition. And I remember playing doctor on her. And I think, with growing up with her needs, we were caretakers to a large degree. Meredith, to a large degree, helped raise me. I have always had that desire to help people and take care of people. But I always knew I wanted to be a nurse. In high school, I knew I was going to be a nurse. It was never hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's just that's what I was going to be. Which is weird to me because I think sometimes people get stuck in this, I don't know what I want to do, and they, take a million different classes at college and they still don't know what they want to do. I just always knew in my heart that I wanted to be a nurse, and I think that's from God. But so I moved to Southern Utah. I got married young and started my course of nursing classes and attended Dixie State to get my associates in nursing. At that time, they didn't have a bachelor's program. And I had Oakley, my oldest, in the prerequisite portion of my education, and then actually was pregnant with my second when I was in my third semester of nursing school. So I was 8 months pregnant when I graduated.
Were you working too at the time?
I was, yes. It was complicated. There was a competitive nursing residency program at the hospital that I really wanted to apply for. It was really competitive. I thought, I'm pregnant, they're never going to hire me. But I applied, and I was one of 4 from my class that was accepted. And so at that time, my husband had actually just lost his job. I was 2 months away from graduation from nursing school. And it was contingent upon passing your nursing boards, of course. And I graduated by that time. By the time I started, I was 8 months pregnant and working 12-hour shifts, working nights. And it was really hard. Really, really hard.
I want to ask you about something you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And make a commentary. You mentioned that your desire to be a nurse was innate, almost as if it came from God.
Yeah.
I guess, do you still feel that way?
I do.
Yeah. Has that been confirmed by your career path, or how has that been confirmed to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think if I think about it too hard, it'll make me emotional.
That's right. I cry all the time on this podcast. It's ridiculous.
When I look at where I'm at right now, if I was not in the career that I'm in right now, I would not be able to take care of my kids. And, I have the opportunity as a nurse practitioner, just in nursing in general, I've had the opportunity to really impact people's lives. And sometimes that's before I ever put my hands on them, just by loving them. Like, I think there's so much power in having that good relationship with patients and just with people in general and connecting with them. And I've always had that desire to just be something good for people. And sometimes it's really small, and sometimes it's really dramatic, and it impacts me sometimes more than it does them. So yeah, I still feel that way for sure.
I kind of wanted to take the tangent too, since you mentioned that Meredith basically raised you, since your parents were so, much of their time was taken up with doctor's visits and things to do with your sister's heart condition, surgeries and hospital stays and work and balancing all that. And I observed that. I was able to watch that happen. And that's one of the reasons I always said, I want to marry somebody like Meredith.
Yeah.
Because I knew she'd be a phenomenal mother and a wonderful wife, and that she could, because I saw the results basically of what she could do before I was even out of high school. And so I felt like that was a rare privilege that I was able to witness something like that. And it really is a testament to you.
Oh, thanks, babe. One thing, I was just thinking about, so Marissa, fun fact, Marissa was born on my 11th birthday. So we're 11 years apart, and I've always loved that we shared a birthday. So I think we've always had a really close bond. And it was, being the oldest of 6, I certainly had moments that were hard to, with mom and dad being gone a lot, and it was hard to take care of everybody. But at the same time, we're really close. Our siblings are all really close. Yeah. We love each other, and we certainly, like all kids, we fought as kids and weren't as patient or whatever. But now as adults, we're so close. But I think having that bond made it easier, I guess, to manage everything. And
we have such a great example, like our mother.
Yes.
I mean, she serves to no end. Mm-hmm. I always laugh because some of my most prominent memories of mom is saying, I'm going to lay down and take a nap, and it's 11 o'clock at night.
Yes.
And she's wake me up in 30 minutes.
Yes. So I can go get ready for bed.
So I can go, or so I can finish the laundry or so. And that is how I survived nurse practitioner school.
Really?
That's crazy.
Is taking naps at 10:30 at night. And
a series of power naps.
Yeah. I had to.
So you wouldn't even get full night
sleep?
Yeah.
No, there just weren't enough hours in the day to work and do your rotations and be mom and study
and
pass your class.
I remember talking to you about that, how you would like, just like you were cry, but you would go to sleep for a few hours and then wake up and study so that you could get that done before you needed to get your boys up and get them ready for school, or, you know, whatever, go to work and school. And I mean, you did it all, literally all.
I think that's an incredible thing to highlight, really, because I think it's very important to illustrate that when you are in pursuit of a goal or a dream or a lifestyle change, for instance, in your case, you got to be willing to do whatever it takes, and you got to commit to it, or else you won't get through it. And I don't know how many people out there are really willing to not sleep for 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and really, like, and you didn't even get weekends off. You know, you were working full time. You know, when you were going through nurse practitioner school at that time, you were fully supporting yourself and on your own. And you had 2 boys to raise that were young. I mean, they were, you know, currently
they were 3 and 6.
Yeah. So they were, you had 2 toddlers, really, you know, and so you had to arrange childcare. You had to make sure that when Oakley started school, that was all coordinated, and you had to continue to work. You had to feed them. You had to feed yourself, which a lot of times I don't know that you really did, you know, and you sacrificed whatever you needed to make sure that you could attain your goal.
Yeah.
And that is what it takes.
But what's incredible to me is you did not sacrifice your boys and your relationship with your boys. You were always a hands-on mother and did everything you could to spend time with them and to help them be happy and healthy and all of the things.
Yeah, I remember it's actually 5 years this week is the anniversary of when everything happened. So Thanksgiving's always been kind of a weird time for me. Because it was the night before Thanksgiving that everything kind of fell apart, and I realized we were going to have to get a divorce. And I remember going into my kids' rooms that night and just, you know, sobbing and looking at them and just saying, like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what's going to happen, because I knew that it was going to be the hardest thing that we'd ever done. And this year was the first year that on Thanksgiving, like, I went to bed with tears of gratitude for where I'm at. Like, truly, it's hard. It is so hard. I remember you guys came to help me move, and everyone was trying to, you know, lift my spirits. And it was 2 days after Christmas. We moved into my new house. And I remember sitting in my bathroom and just being just so broken and just asking God, like, just take this away from me, because I cannot do it. And if there's any way to spare my kids, you know, the pain that it's going to cause, like, please do it. And I remember in that moment realizing, like, nothing's going to take this away. I can either let myself get buried with my kids, or I can fight like hell to get out. And so that's what I did. Just one step at a time every day. And I certainly had setbacks. It seemed like on, you know, a weekly basis of feeling like, can't do this. And it's hard, because I think sometimes we look at other people's trials, and people look at us and they think like it is easier than it is. And it's all relative, right? It's all perspective. But I had somebody message me one time and she said, you know, it's really great for you that it's been such an easy transition.
Whoa.
Wow.
Because some of us aren't so lucky. Wow. And I remember when I read that message, I was like in a fetal position in my bathtub in tears, because it was one of those days. Like I couldn't do it. And I think every trial that I've had, every like turning point where, you know, you're kind of at a crossroad to decide whether or not you're going to push through it or let it be the reason that you fail. I feel like every one of those has helped make me a little bit stronger each time. And like I have pre-decided Just like I pre-decided I'm not going to do drugs, right? Like it's not a hard decision for me. I think I have pre-decided, like, I'm just never going to give up for my kids and for my future self. That's like I owe it to myself. Like part of this is I'm on this journey of like healing and self-discovery and recovery to heal myself and to prove to myself that I can do it, but also to show my boys that like life is really, really crappy sometimes. And I don't know. I think if you want it bad enough, you'll find a way to do it.
I love that.
And a lot of times in life, like people wait for their circumstances to change so that it's easier, so that things fall into place, so that they can make their goals happen, or, just waiting for those perfect circumstances. And it just doesn't happen most of the time. And it certainly wasn't easy for you. I know it was so hard.
That was incredibly powerful. Thank you for sharing that. When you mentioned those crossroads, at those times when, I think you call them crossroads, those times when it was you're at your breaking point and you got to decide, am I going to quit? Am I going to not give up? Right? Am I not going to give up? I love what you said. I'm not going to give up on my boys. I'm not going to give up for my boys. And I'm not going to give up for my future self.
Yeah.
That's incredible. It's incredible. I don't know how many people have that internal dialogue when they're in that state. And sometimes you can't even get to that dialogue because you're so buried with the despair and the bad news and all that's, like you said, the floor falling out from under you, and you're just trying to find a footing. How did you stay grounded that much? And then what was able to help you break through that so that you could keep going forward?
Man, I really had to take a hard look at like my mental health. Like it's not talked about. I feel like, especially, going to school alone is really freaking hard. It's really hard. And being married is really hard. And working full time is really hard. And being a mom, so when you add all these things together, it's like the mental health side just kind of gets pushed to the back burner. And I had to really, because I felt like I so easily could have just gone so far the wrong direction, and completely shut down. And I recognized that, and I recognized I have to make a conscious effort every single day to fight like hell to stay above ground, above water. And So I set some boundaries for myself in that I was going to have to make some sacrifices, meaning I wasn't going to have the social aspect of life that I wanted for a little while. And I was going to have to be very consistent with a few things for my boys, meaning we called out every night. From the day that we got divorced, the day that we got split, we called out every single night. And that was extremely painful for me during that time. But I wanted them to know that even though we were apart, they still had those people in their life. They still had everybody that they needed. I established a bedtime routine that is a non-negotiable. We brush our teeth, we go in and we read a bedtime story sometimes, but they each get 10 to 15 minutes with me after they've each said a prayer and I say a prayer, rub their backs. It's very consistent. And through nurse practitioner school, so many nights I just was so exhausted that I did not want to do 1 ounce of that bedtime routine. But I knew that showing up for them in that way, being consistent, that I am here, even though I'm tired and even though I just need to turn the lights off because I need to cry for a minute. They know that they have that consistency with me. So I set some boundaries for myself and for my own mental health, being that at nighttime, if I feel too tired to do something, I give myself that grace and I'm going to take the time for myself. So I don't know. I certainly was not perfect at it. It was a learning curve.
I was almost more impressed because it goes almost opposite of what you said in previous episodes where you see couples that have been divorced grow to hate each other.
Right.
And you out of the gate was like, we're going to call dad each night. So it's just a testament to you to have that commitment. Because like you're saying, some couples get divorced and just grow to hate each other.
Right. Well, usually it's an emotionally charged reason why you're getting divorced.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's hard to stay in ration. It's really easy for emotion to take over and control the dynamic of the relationship at that point.
Yeah.
And it's so selfless that you did that.
Yes.
Because you did that for your boys, not for you. Right? Like that was 100% to be able to allow them to feel safe in the relationships with their dad and their mom, and to just have that security, because divorce is so hard on children, and it's so hard to maintain that security. And I think you've done an incredible job doing that, and that you can both now work together as friends and co-parent and be there for your boys. It's a beautiful thing to
it's like the
watch.
selfless thing, like you were saying, because I feel like most people out of a divorce, like to put your kids before yourself, because obviously, like you said, it was hard, right? Calling each night to him after you got a divorce. So it's like, however much that's affecting you, you didn't care.
Yeah.
Which is unreal.
Well, and the theme that kept occurring in my mind as you were talking about that is discipline versus motivation. You know, you were very disciplined in your approach to being a single mother, to achieving your goals, to making sure all the needs were met. You were very disciplined about it. You were willing to sacrifice things, like you said, a social life for a period of time, luxuries, you know, for a period of time. You know, you weren't necessarily able to be bougie when you wanted to be, or you know, whatever. But then too, when the emotions crept in, and it wasn't necessarily, you know, a cakewalk for either one of you. You know, going through that process, but that discipline after the motivation was gone, you know, after the energy was gone, after you were exhausted, after you had nothing left to give, you were disciplined enough to still go do it and to stick to your routine. And I think that's incredible. And I think that's one of the secrets. I think that's, you know, one of your secrets to your success is having an incredible amount of discipline and being laser focused on the outcomes that you want and maintaining those. That's incredible.
Well, that was a question I was going to ask, because obviously viewers watching this.
I need to cut for a second.
You're good. Yeah.
I need a Kleenex because you made my nose run. So then I'm like,
Made your nose run?
yeah, you did.
There's another fly.
I know, I saw it.
For the love.
Just get it with your hand, Justin. Just
Smack it. It's so hard to
load it up, sis. Oh boy, on the mic.
There you go.
Dang.
Oh my
I
gosh.
shot it off the mic before.
Two tapping it.
Oh, obliterated, gonzo. If you want to cut this or not, let me know. But I just realized as we were talking about marriage and divorce, I looked down and I didn't have my wedding ring on. I thought, oh no, what an idiot. I didn't prep. Of all things to leave out of this shot right at that time.
I'll clip that. So I was thinking, viewers that are tuning in, you know, maybe somebody is going through a divorce, or are on the cusp of it, or maybe they're struggling with the post after the decision has been made. Like, did you have any advice that, like, how you got through it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like we were discussing, it was all about my kids. Like, I knew that it would pain me to have certain discussions with my ex-husband, to have to work through things together when we weren't this married unit anymore. Our relationship wasn't what it once was, but I just thought, okay, this is terrible. Like, how good can we make it considering the circumstances? And it does require a lot of selfless acts. It requires, you know, I remember having the conversation with him, look, we are going to set some guidelines. We will never fight in front of the boys, ever. Like, post-divorce, things can be really difficult. Like, you no longer owe it to each other to, like, come together and figure out your schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't.
Yeah.
But when you have kids together, you do.
Yeah.
And so he, you know, thankfully, I have to applaud him on that. He's met me in the middle on that, and he understands the value in coming together for the betterment of our kids.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, we're gonna tear them apart. And you know, one of my like biggest fears, I remember coming to the realization that we needed to get a divorce, and there just was this voice in my head, you know, people saying kids that come from divorced homes are screwed up. And I remember that, like, it totally broke me, because it made me feel very trapped. It made me feel like, you know, no matter what I did, my kids were hosed.
Well,
Like,
yeah, that's an unfortunate story. I mean, I don't know if it's a stereotype or a statistic. There are, you know, that is said quite a bit, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily the divorce that screws the kids up. It's the fighting and the you know, using the kids as pawns to get leverage over a spouse, or you know, the really the mental abuse that happens afterwards if people aren't grounded,
right?
So that they don't, like you guys, like, how fortunate, right, that you and your ex-husband were both able to like just come together and say, look, we got to do what's right for the kids.
Yeah.
And you didn't use them as weapons against each other, right. And you respected them enough, and you respected yourselves enough to make sure that there really was an essence of love. Not that it wasn't romantic love, but you were acting out of love for your children together.
Yeah.
And that really is a beautiful thing. And I would argue too, though, that kids that come from homes that have parents who are extremely unhappy, or who are not on the same page, or who fight all the time, that screws kids up just as bad.
Absolutely.
You know, and I guess I don't have the statistics behind me to say that, but I have, you know, whether if you're not in a good relationship with your spouse and you're raising kids, you are modeling to your children that, hey, you just stay in a horrible relationship the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And home is hell. And that's just it, you know, and that's not good to model for kids either.
For sure. Right.
So I think actually, you know, in some respects, it may have been one of the most courageous things that you did, mm-hmm. and may have been one of the greatest things for your boys to have gone through what you did, especially the way you went through it. Mm-hmm. You know,
thank you.
You know, looking back, and I mean, your kids can brag about you. You know, like, thank you. That's my mom. Mm-hmm. You know,
thank you.
And that's really incredible. So, you know, and I've had that conversation with family members and friends who are in marriage relationships that are not ideal for them. And they're like, what do we do? You know, and it's like, well, you got to realize your kids are watching your every move. So are you modeling, are you setting a model for a husband and wife relationship, and for parents, you know, as they're looking into their future, thinking of being parents, are you setting a model that you want them to emulate?
Right. And in our marriage, you know, without getting into too many details, you know, my ex-husband he wasn't in a good place. And he will say, like, had you not done what you did, I would have never gotten to where I am now. Like, I would have never gotten out of it. And there are circumstances when it is so unfortunate, but there are circumstances when it is not in your family's best interest to stay together. Right. It's not healthy. And you start to lose pieces of yourself when you do stay and you forgive and you sweep it under the rug and you think, okay, well, this is my circumstance. This is my story.
I think that's really important what you just said. You end up starting to lose pieces of yourself.
You do, because you start to lower your standard. You start to lose hope. You start to lower your expectation for yourself. Like, I don't know, in my mind, when I was married, you know, I had these big aspirations for like what I wanted my life to look like professionally, as a mother, as a wife. And I felt like I was in this hamster wheel in all aspects. I didn't feel like I could be the mother I wanted to be because I didn't get the time. I didn't feel like I was able to do what I wanted to because I felt like I was meant to do something so much greater, but I couldn't because I was in the wrong place. And in my marriage, I mean, I wanted all of the right things. I wanted, you know, a good, happy, healthy marriage. And I know no marriage is perfect, but I wanted all of the right things. There was not the opportunity for us to get there anymore. And at that point, it was, my kids were 3 and 6. I only have how many more years until they're out of the house, and I have a small window to influence them and to show them what type of adults they need to be. And I didn't feel like I had the ability to do that in the circumstance I was in. And so for us, it was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible. I can tell you, I lost sight of that. I lost sight of, I was so wrapped up in my own mental health struggles, for lack of a better term. It's an all-encompassing term. I don't want that to make it sound worse than it was, right? But it really was working through things in my mind, anxiety and trauma and different things. And not even really knowing I had that, to work through. I just knew I felt my brain didn't work, and I always knew that I thought differently than most people. But as I was going through the worst of my decisions, I lost sight of what you just said. You only have a certain amount of time with your kids.
Yeah.
And I can't get a couple years back.
Yeah.
And it made a difference. I can tell in my older kids, it made a difference for worse that I lost sight of that. And so the only reason I highlight that is I just want to speak to the importance of parents not losing sight of that finite time that you have with your children. You only have so many weekends to spend with your children. Yeah. If you're going to spend every one of them sleeping in, like I did this morning, and I feel guilty about, maybe that's why I'm talking about it. After 3 hard days of Thanksgiving, though, man, I justified it, but I still feel guilty about it. But anyways, you only have so many weekends with your kids. You only have so many opportunities to take them to lunch or to pick them up from school or to go to their games, and then it's gone, and you can't make that time up.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible that you kept sight of that, because I even lost it. And that's something you don't get back. I love that you said earlier, Marissa, where you said, Thanksgiving, where you're talking about the seasonality of Thanksgiving and how the seasonality does bring up triggers or even happy memories, or, it can stimulate your memory, whether it's good or bad. And I am grateful and love that you were able to say that this year you were able to cry. Tears of joy.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And it speaks to really the character of both you and your ex-husband, that you're able to get there.
Thank you.
And how wonderful to be able to have a positive chapter now and have hope moving forward and looking to a greater future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we spent a decent amount of this episode talking about this. So we are going to dive into a lot more with Marissa on future episodes. So don't forget to tune in. We want to thank you for being here and sharing your story with us. I know that it's going to benefit many people as they listen to you and your wisdom and your experience.
Yes,
and we appreciate you sharing that. So don't forget to do your part now. Don't forget to clickety click, like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to tune in to the next episode of The Value Script.